Hello and welcome. I am Cyril Stober. A person may be referred to as a senior citizen if they have retired or receive an old age pension, or their principal source of support is from a social security benefit. In many societies, older persons of the age of 60 years and above may fall in this category of citizens. Now, given the challenges and peculiarities of aging, certain safety nets are often put in place for the elderly. In Nigeria, the National Senior Citizens Center Act of 2017 facilitated the establishment of the National Senior Citizens Center to identify the needs of senior citizens and to cater for them. Dr. Emem Omokaro is the Director General of the center. She joins me to examine how the center can impact the lives of older persons. Dr. Omokaro, thanks for joining us on One-on-One.
Thank you so much. What a season to sit with you.
Right, thank you.
I really need to thank NTA and NSCC. We are grateful for how you have magnified our voices, taken us to the homes of Nigerians, and then helping to accelerate our efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too.
Thank you.
Well, just to start this discussion, let's look at who a senior citizen is, an older person. In our climes, in our part of the country, there are some societies, they have maybe slightly different age groups. But here, who is the senior citizen we refer to?
Globally, when I say globally now, I'm referring to, of course, the United Nations, and I'm also referring to African Union, and I'm also referring to the different policy frameworks, regional policy frameworks. So an older person is looked at from the chronological age. I do know that there are also some cultural setting where you look at the social context of achievements as defined by such society. So for us, an older person is somebody who is age 60 and above. And that's by reason of our policy, national policy on aging. But going by the Act, the National Senior Citizen Center Act, for someone to enjoy the facilities of the senior center, not now the National Senior Citizen Center, that person has to be 70 years. So for Nigeria, we really need to, NSCC is working to reconcile that.
Okay.
As you would know, that mandatory age of retirement is 60 for most public servants. So they will not be in a limbo, having retired and referred to as retirees. And you cannot refer to them as senior citizens, as you rightly pointed. So yes, 60 years for Nigeria, yes. So
there's an interesting thing which you just talked about now. I said, well, 60 years and above, but for certain categories to enjoy certain facilities or services, the senior center, that presupposes that there is a senior center even within the senior citizens center.
For the approach that we are taking at the National Senior Citizen Center, because you see that we have operationalized the national policy on aging, which means we have brought it into really concrete plans of action, developing programs and, the deliverables that we will deliver to Nigerians. So for us, it's 60 years. So once you're retired, once you hit 60 years, everything is open to you until we can reconcile that in the books.
So it's a good time to now talk about your peculiar and core mandate as the National Senior Citizens Center, established by Act. So what are those things that the center should be doing and is doing?
I want to say that the National Senior Citizen Center Act, it's a very fundamental legislation. In fact, it's a landmark. Landmark in the sense that before now, Nigeria nationally is really not prepared to respond to the challenges of senior citizens. So this act really, brings that to the fore and really nails it. So the mandate is to identify the needs of senior citizens and to cater for those needs. Of course, you know that is myriad of needs, intersectoral, multi-sectoral, talk about health, talk about social programs, talk about housing, transportation, recreation, anything, engaging in capacity building, providing learning opportunities, creating age-friendly environment. It is really huge. It's a huge mandate, but that is the mandate. And then principally also to reorient Nigerians, to cause attitudes towards older people to change from negative, stereotypical, prejudiced, for them to see older people as bona fide human rights holders. They are Nigerians. And for us to see older people as valuable assets and treasure, and who are still continuing to contribute and deserve the opportunity to participate and truly be included in the true sense of it. That these are the people indeed that are holding our communities. I mean, take away the grandfathers and the grandmothers, from the families, and then you see the vacuum there. So yes, so that's our mandate. Our mandate is to reorient Nigerians, to bring positivity, to turn around, where approach to issues of older persons were fragmented, negative. You think that to invest in an older person is a cost, is a loss. It's like you're depriving the youth because you're investing in an older person. So it is our mandate to change that narrative.
This is huge.
Very huge.
Because I'm considering the numerous, sectors in this, and
Exactly.
but you set out plans on the establishment of the center, and you had program of action. Let's talk about that, because comes easily one of the biggest things in society is older persons are just seen as people who should be discarded.
Exactly.
Of course, we all know all the attitudes about once you go old and grey, you're a witch or you're a wizard or something like that.
Come to that. So principally, given this mandate, identify needs of older persons and cater for those needs. And then you look around and you know that this is an emerging issue for Nigeria. This is brand new, and that before now, we did not have that framework. We did not have any roadmap. We did not have that structure and architecture. And we did not have any mechanism to even engage the older people, to know where they are. And then, of course, to develop that program. So what did we do as a center? Having inaugurated the board, so the first thing was to set out to see how we can take the national policy on aging. Thank God we had the national policy on aging, which articulated all the challenges and identified strategic interventions with recommendation. So that was a plus for us. And then we set out to really take a look at the act itself and see how we can interpret the act, translate the act into, let's go to the field with it. So what did we do? First, I would like to discuss this according to the thematic areas.
Right.
So the first thing that we set out to do was to strengthen the framework, the institutions, and put the structures in place. So first and foremost, we said, okay, now we have an entity, the National Senior Citizen Center, to define, so what would be the role of the National Senior Citizen Center? And so first we set out to see how do we do what we have been mandated to do. So that's now brought us to developing that 10-year strategic roadmap. Who do we do it with? What will be our threats? We are new. Who are we to collaborate with? What can we initiate? Some things, given that you have MDAs who have statutory mandates in this area that intersect our mandate. For instance, health. For instance, you look at social programs, then you look at recreation, you look at sports, and then you look at so many things. And they are already MDAs in existence. So how do we relate? So first and foremost, we needed to define ourselves, who we are, and what we are called to do. We will initiate, we will collaborate, we will coordinate, and of course, we will, monitor and continue to evaluate what we can do with others. So that was mapping the MDs that were relevant to us and bringing them all into the development of our strategic roadmap, because we will not develop that and then throw it at them. We wanted them to sit with us, so many MDAs and civil society organizations, professional bodies in aging, representative of traditional institutions, and then, of course, private sector, and then the Association of Older Persons themselves, Nigerian Union of Pensioners, every category of relevant stakeholders, they sat across this country, and we developed that strategic framework. So you see the voice of everybody in that framework. So this is our mandate. We're able to identify the vision very clearly. We're able to identify our mission, how we're going to go about our mission very clearly. We're going to identify our commitment, our core values, and then to look at what will drive us, those drivers, and what will enable us, and of course, where would the weaknesses come from, and how do we overcome those weaknesses? So we have a 10-year strategic roadmap which has just been published. In fact, we are going to launch very early next year. And then after that, the next thing was to take the policy on aging. Now we have a policy, it's just paperwork, theory. So how do we bring it to the field? So also we sat with the stakeholders, we brought consultants, and we were very supported by the UN Department of Social and Economic Affairs, the Division of Social Inclusion, who provided the technical support. So we worked with the consultants and the stakeholders. Now we have, for the first time in this country, we have a national plan of action on aging, meaning that all the objective and all the strategic interventions that were proposed in the policy now have been broken down practically. So you could see, for instance, you take income security. This is our plan for to ensure that older persons come out of poverty. This is our plan, broken down. And then you see, okay, how do we build their capacity? This is our plan. So there is nothing you see in the Act, and there is nothing you see in the national policy that you will not see thoroughly, practically broken down. How we are going to go about it, who we are going to go about it with, the timelines, and these are our key performance indicators. So we have all that. And then, having done that, the next thing that we sat down to do was, so how do we, what are the numbers?
Right.
The data. And then, of course, you know that over these years, it was really not very desirable, so to speak, to, include older people in national surveys and then sit down to disaggregate so that you really know, okay, these indicators are for older people. So what we did was, having identified all our partners in their different statutory mandate areas, of course we sat with MBS, because MBS, of course, they have current surveys, national surveys, the national living standard survey, Nigerian living standard survey. They sat with us. We formed a technical team, and they were able to break down and disaggregate the data for us. And then, of course, we went to NASCO, the National Social Coordinating Safety Nets Coordinating Office. They sat with us. Data for the poor and vulnerable. They broke that down for us. So
you do have an estimate, a figure for who might be these your constituents, the older persons in this country.
Yes.
You do have something you...
We have something we are working with, waiting for the census to confirm.
Because that too, knowing just the number you have to be dealing with.
Yes.
There's so much here. The question of data, and if I do recall, there was something about registration and having a database for all senior citizens and older persons. How far with that? Is this part of what you've just explained?
That's a mandate. That's one of the core mandates, and is contained in that Act, that we should keep records of senior citizens, have their statistics in the databases.
And that would be a pretty interesting part, because we do know from past experiences and attempts at census that Nigerians are not given to disclosure. They don't like to talk about their age, and at some point in time we had issues, in fact, determining the correct ages of people. Even now, it's still a challenge.
I'm sure that the National Population Commission has carried out extensive sensitization about the importance of census. They have been to every nook and cranny. So we are with the national census, and then we have a partnership with the National Population Commission, because they have included serious indicators, very comprehensive indicators, and when those are disaggregated, we're able to have some very good numbers and indicators. But at the same time, we have worked with NBS, even when it comes to entrepreneurship, how many people 60 years and above own enterprises. We have really worked with NBS to break down a lot of things, location, and then distance to healthcare services. We have been able to break down a lot of things. However, what would be optimal for us as a National Senior Citizen Center is to partner with NBS, that concept is already done, and to conduct a multi-indicator survey on aging. Because there have never been any baseline concerning older people. And because, general census and all that is okay. But where you now target aging specifically, and then you bring all the indicators that might escape national census and national survey, and the focus is on aging. Once you do that, then you got the baseline across all the sectors and all the challenges. So that's what we intend to do. And we are working with NBS to be able to do that. So when we have all this, then we can truly say, yes, we can build our database. Even with NASCO, we're also working with NIMSI. We're also working with NIMSI as well. So they're enrolling older people, they are disaggregating, then pushing those numbers to us.
Older people have peculiar challenges. I'm looking at this now, and even amongst older people, you have peculiar challenges for males and females.
Yeah.
This is also another challenging point, because generally we might say the issues are health, transportation, and access to
income,
then income as well.
income
And you have all these, and sometimes we don't even know where to start off with. For your center,
but the beauty of it is that we identify 2 strategic pathways, so we are not overwhelmed. So we are not inventing everything. So now, first and foremost, we map all the MDs who have statutory mandates in these areas that you're talking about. You're talking about health, you're talking about primary health.
yes, let's look at
National
health.
Primary Healthcare Development
Right.
Agency.
Let's look
If
at
you're
health,
talking
for
about
instance.
income security, you have the national NDE, the National Directorate of Employment, and you have so many other agencies that have this mandate. So we say we should talk about health.
Okay, yes, health, because as people grow older, then the health challenges, their system begins to, break down.
Yes.
And you find that among the older persons are more prone to health challenges,
Yes.
and this is recognized.
Yes.
And how do we go about that? Yes, I know you might talk about the National Health Insurance package coming from the National Health Insurance Authority, but again here we're looking at a peculiar age group, senior citizens.
I want to say that if we look at the system, it's a federal system that we run. You have the federal government, you have the state government, and then of course you have the local government.
Yeah.
And health, as you have seen, is on the concurrent list. The beauty of this now is that, the National Senior Citizen Center, with this mandate now, and the legislation that, inaugurated it, now can initiate and then encourage, the persons with the principal mandates, to see the gap and to see the need. I give you an example. The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Now, of course, for a long time, we have 14,000 primary healthcare facilities. I got to learn across. But you would know that there really was no alignment of the primary healthcare to the needs of the older people. But I want to say, as I'm speaking now, that we're working with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and the WHO to be able to do that through the framework that is called ICO, Integrated Care for Older Persons, where, of course, now issues of basic geriatric care is going to be, integrated, mainstreamed into the curriculum. We did not really have this.
Right, that's true.
And then, of course, issues of training the CHUs, those community healthcare extension workers, where the focus was on maternity health all the time. So now training them. So we have gone far, working with WHO, working with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and also working with executive secretaries of state primary healthcare development boards to do the assessment. And we have picked FCT and Adamawa as our pilot cases. So once we do this, and we are very much interested in not only getting the old persons to come to an age-friendly facility, primary healthcare basic facility, but getting the extension workers to go where the older people are. So everything in between, we have identified the gaps, the human resource gaps, the infrastructure gaps, and all those things. I know it's a tall thing, principally because we are not the primary, primary statutory mandate holders. So those are part of the thrust that we look. How do we go about? We want to come with speed, but they are catering for the entire population of Nigeria.
That's true.
So you can't pull them to focus on them. But we have made some strides. And then you now, look at social care. But when we talk about healthcare for older people, you must also look at the social aspects, because you have most older people at home. Most of them really have, increasing incidence of multimorbidity. They are battling with high blood pressure, battling with arthritis, battling with respiratory, and then you have helpers in the house, caregivers in the house who have no clue about these things. So NSCC is interested in setting standards for home care, for whatever facility that is necessary to be open, and not just by ourselves, but working with all the agencies and ministries that have the mandate. In fact, we have kicked off that, and we are working to ensure that we bring care quality assurance together in agreement with all the stakeholders, care quality assurance and competency. So train the caregivers, certify care agencies, and then have a national curriculum for training. We have really gone, some extent with that. So yes, NSCC is looking at health and social care. NSCC is looking at aligning the needs of older persons across the general hospitals, the tertiary hospitals. There was a directive a long time ago. There's a National Health Council directive that every tertiary health institution, like the teaching hospital, should have geriatric center. If you have set up geriatric centers, if you have geriatric units. So Nigeria is gradually, getting to that place. And I think that the setting up of the National Senior Center has accelerated it, because we are very particular about health and social care. And by next year, we will have, made some strides, some very reasonable progress, setting up the standards.
True that this is multi-sectoral, it cuts across, and even when you look at the challenges themselves for older persons, they're all intertwined.
Yes.
Take transportation, for instance, older persons who need to move around. And in some climes, they would say they have a reduced rate, they pay less. It doesn't happen here, but of course we know that there is there's almost a near absence of transport infrastructure here.
Yeah, yes, and you really hit it there. Where you have free transportation, Lagos already is running a free transportation on their BRT for older persons. But nationally now, of course, you know that in 2021, December 2021, there was a presidential declaration for the progressive registration of older people. With that functional ID, still rising from the NIN number,
right,
but making it smart and functional. So that with that ID they can access transportation, age-friendly transportation, access age-friendly services, whether it's in banks, whether it's in every sector, aviation, So we are working with NIMSI on that to really accelerate the enrollment of older people, because it is from that enrollment, the figures, that we are going to now disaggregate and begin to issue and we have gone very far there. At the same time, there are campaigns, I'm sure. Thank God for NTA. You've been watching some of our campaign. I should really thank NTA and other, that have really helped us to put it on your prime time. You see the campaigns, because first it has to be attitudinal change. Yes, it will make it a policy, will bring out regulations and guidelines, but you don't really need to, slap it on the forehead of a junior to see a senior citizen standing and for you to get up. Those are the values we teach in family. Those are the values we teach in family. So of course it's coming back. So our campaigns are on attitudes to older people, restoring respect, restoring that honor, acknowledging that they have invested. They have spent their time and lives, and some of them their blood, for this country. So what can they ask of you? A seat? So those are the campaigns that we are mounting, developing and mobilizing support networks for older people. And next year is going to be more intensified, because we are going to Nollywood support for older people, bankers support for older people, journalists, broadcasters support for older people. So we are going sector by sector by sector to really mobilize this support for us to know that indeed it is the future we want that we are creating. Everybody's growing old, everybody's growing old. So why not create the future that you want by making the environment age-friendly?
There's also the matter of shelter for older persons, which is a huge, huge, huge challenge. I know in some African societies they would say, start a family, have a family, and perhaps the children are an investment. But that is not usually or always the case. And you do find older persons, some who have gone through the public service, for instance, and who are unable to afford personal shelter. And they're out, and again the question of income, it's also there. And you find that the numbers of older persons who are homeless is scary.
Yeah, and of course you know that mandate lies specifically with the Ministry of Housing. However, we just had the UN Human Rights Expert on Aging visited Nigeria, and then we had cluster meetings across all these MDs on thematic areas. And I think housing also was one, and issues of IDP, older persons, IDPs in camps, and accommodation was one. So in those areas, of course, NSCC filled the gaps. And as we develop technical partnerships with all these MDAs in the different areas, the housing aspect is the one we are developing right now.
Right, so we suppose you'll be speaking with the Federal Ministry of Housing on these matters.
As a matter of fact, the composition of our board is very technical, and it was very deliberate. The board of the National Senior Citizen Center, we have representative of these major ministries. On our board sits somebody from the Ministry of Housing, Works and Housing. So definitely, that is one area that we are teasing, that we want to develop very concrete partnership with. So yes.
If we were to step back a bit and just leave the core mandate and look at matters generally, you have done extensive work in promoting the values of older persons and bringing their plight to the fore. You've done so much in that. And for many, we see citizens who retire and suddenly it's a bleak future. That's where we want to go to next after this break, and we'll be asking what the center can do about this. So stay with us, we'll be back shortly.
Weekend File, your Saturday delight, going to places from the obscure to the hinterland and cities, bringing you development stories and perspectives, connecting the people with government and stakeholders on critical issues of our national life.
We are live in Abuja.
It's 9 p.m. every Saturday on the network service of the NTA. Weekend File, you can't afford to miss it.
Why should we be in a difficult situation financially?
Once upon a time we were rich, but we're not a rich country anymore.
Disaster management is everybody's business.
In all these times, the organization turned to Nigeria. We would as much want to harness the capacity that is within us so that we see how we can become self-reliant.
1 month ended and you said you are increasing warning strike by 2 months. I mean, you are incubating madness.
Even if these are officials of government who have been told to go and enforce the law and they have gone against the law itself, they must be held accountable.
One-on-One, Friday, 10:30 p.m. on NTA Network.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still here with the Director General of the National Senior Citizens Center, Dr. Emem Omokaro. We started talking about the prospect of a retiree going home and suddenly the future is bleak. And this can be scary. And this is the plight of many senior citizens, especially those who have been in public service. And sometimes they look at retirement as a curse. How can you begin to address this?
Retirement is just more than disengaging from work. I mean, disengaging from activities that one had been engaged in for 35 years, a routine, a schedule, an environment, relationships, and of course, just knowing that this is my room. You get up and you occupy that today is filled up with the room, and then suddenly there's disengagement. So yes, I acknowledge that it's psychological, social and can cause a lot of stress. And then I also acknowledge that there are different thematic areas that cause this concern. One, first and foremost, is preparedness. You know, when the mind is prepared, I don't want to sound like a psychiatrist now, the mind is prepared and the life that is led is wholesome. In other words, you find where, you know, the 100% of somebody's life is given to work most of the times. See, 100%. Everything is focused on work. Maybe a little about family. And then at some point you need to disengage, and you disengage 100%. So where life is taken in its context, holistic, you're building friendships, you're building community, you're part of community, you've identified your areas of interest, personal interest and passion. It could be part of that work, and it could be what gave you strength to carry on that work for so long. Then that becomes your assets. That becomes your strength, and that becomes a treasure. So now the problem now will be, how do you translate all that you have accumulated all these years? How do you translate your experience? How do you translate your expertise? How do you translate the community of friendships that you have built all these years? How do you now create your own? Still leaning on all that you have accumulated, because that becomes you. So now that is where NSCC has come in. NSCC has identified the major challenges for the retirees. One is to be income security. So now you have extended income gaps. The monies you earn is not going to come in the flow and the way you earned it. So there are gaps. And of course your lifestyle has been the same lifestyle for over 30 years. So there's a gap. So how do you supplement that income? How do you recreate your role and make yourself continue to be useful, still using your experience and your passion? So that's one. And then number two challenge will be healthy aging. All through the 35 years that you've saved, did you impair your functional capacity? Or do you still have your functional capacity? If it's impaired, so how can the environment be friendly? Continue to help you to engage, you know, where you are right now. And then the other one is loneliness. Loneliness and aloneness, where you cannot get up and go to work. And then you look around, everybody that you could relate to, they are at work. And then they are, your family is gone.
Children are grown.
So you see income
gone on their own.
security, you see health issues, especially worse for those who have multi-morbidities and then have to manage, and then they have to pay out of pocket now. Thank God for the National Health Insurance Authority Act, which is going to be unbundled and which is going to bring support to, you know, persons who are retired and older persons as well. And then the other one will be, how do you create that social club, that social cycle, where you can continue to engage and do what you love to do and banter and just be yourself. And then the other one is, how friendly is the environment? How are the attitudes of people towards you, even when you go back to where you used to work? So these are the challenges. So now NSCC, of course, income security. We are there, told you now that we are creating enterprises, empowering all the people, aligning them into existing entrepreneurship programs. For instance now, we have very formidable partnership with NTA, where older people have been mainstreamed into the mature people's programs, where they give loans. So through NSCC, we secure loans for older people who have enterprises, who come to us when we have any opportunity. So that's number one. And then number two, we are creating our own opportunities. The senior-led indigenous crafts, arts and crafts, anything that you can do, anything that you can do that is bringing value, that we can find markets for you, and we can help you to optimize it, then we give you the grant. We call it the proof of concept grant. We just granted 230 older people across this country article. We built their capacity working with NDE. Identify all these crafts. These are treasures in the local community. Wasting. And the raw materials are gotten from that community. I said there's so much prosperity in our community. So for instance, you retire, you go back to your community. What can you do in your community? How do you bring your experience, your expertise to now create a role in that community? NSCC will support you. So we are looking, identifying enterprises like this. And apart from that, we are now in the process of building our portals, where we want to create a continuing engagement bureau. I was very excited when I saw the other day that the Bureau of Public Policy, Public Policy, is also thinking in this direction. And the head of service also office is thinking in this direction. So I will mainstream, we will meet and mainstream. So because we're interested in creating that continuing engagement bureau, where we bring retirees, we bring people who have retirement, have so much, we don't call it retirement, we call it disengagement, because we want to re-engage. You know, it's the third age where we, you know, mobilize and create opportunities for all.
You have a whole load of collaborations and engagements with people, but I like to zero in on two and ask what the focus was. One's with the Nigerian Interreligious Council, NIREC, and the other with the National Traditional Rulers Council, Nigeria.
I would tell you that NSCC is really blessed with very, very influential, I mean, people in authority, I mean, traditionals too, you can imagine, and influence in their communities, they are a faith community who are really promoting and want to see the success of NSCC. One of such, you know, highly revered and regarded friend that we have, I must humbly say so, is His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto. And we paid a courtesy call and, you know, informed him of our mandate. And of course, he said, no, you should come and address us, because every faith community looks out for the vulnerable. They look out for the poor. And of course, they talk about equity and peace and harmony and a cohesive society. That's what we are about. So yes, we will support you, you know, to this reorientation and carrying out your. So that's, I'm giving you the history of how we came here. So it was through the grace of His Eminence. So yes, and that was such a priceless opportunity for us to be able to, you know, inform and persuade and seek a partnership with the Nigerian interreligious organizations. Of course, you know their mandate, interface, interact, exchange, just to create harmony. And then we brought the issue of, you know, elder abuse. And we brought the issue of violence against older people. And anything that is faith-based is really taken very seriously, where they will help us to promote the value of older people. And that dementia is not witchcraft. Cognitive impairment is not witchcraft. It's just cognitive impairment. So when you find an older person who has lost his or her way, and you find an older person who has forgotten his memory loss, you don't stone the person and say it's karma, and then you stone and kill, ostracize. So this community of faith will help us, to now announce those and continue to campaign and reorient. So we are partners in that. And then, of course, we are also going to partner, because I wrote a long list of the areas that we would love to partner with the community of faith, interreligious organization, is in social welfare. We know that our community of faith have invested a lot in communities. If you want to talk about the Catholic Church, this also is, they have built schools. Talk about the Presbyterian Church, Methodist Church, talk about the Muslim faith, they have built schools. So yes, so also, having provided for the child, the adolescent, and the youth, we can build senior centers.
Right.
Churches can also build senior centers. So those are the areas that we select. We have philanthropists, very wealthy men who, they can, build and brand the senior centers. What we are doing presently, as I tell you, is that we are developing policy guidelines, purpose statements, and then competency standards, so that we don't just go building senior centers. We have identified models of senior centers. We want to compute all this and have baseline. So you want to develop a senior center, these are the standards. We have developed monitoring, evaluation, implementation, capacity building with a national curriculum, manual, training manual, so that we just come in partnership. We can help this community of faith build a senior center. We can help train all the workers in this senior center, and we can monitor and evaluate with you. So government cannot do everything. And then we have our senior citizens. They become very religious, very spiritual at a certain age. So they're all in the churches and the mosque, and we can't ignore them. So that was a very beautiful opportunity to talk to the co-chairs. And then coming to the National Council of Traditional Rulers, that was so priceless. Where you have all of them, it's co-chaired by the same, His Eminence the Sultan of Sokoto, and then of course His Imperial Majesty the Oni of Ife. And then every one of them was there. And I was given that, I was given the opportunity to address them. The same information I brought to them. Now we have a National Senior Citizen Center. Now we need to domesticate this act in the states. And we need your influence. You can talk to the governors. You can talk to the state assembly. Because see what the National Senior Citizen Center has been able to do, coordinating across MDAs, building capacity and getting people to understand aging. So you can imagine if this is replicated across the states.
And
so yes,
just as you say that, domesticating and replicating in the states, and a huge population in the rural areas,
yes.
Of course from your constituency, older persons,
Yes.
and they're there.
Yes.
How do you, what are the strategies for you to reach to these rural areas where the facilities would not be as what you have in the urban centers, and where the challenges would even be more?
Yeah. So that was one of the threats we identified that would threaten our speed and threaten our delivery. And that was also one of the strategies we really sat down to really develop. So how do we, first and foremost, the mandate with the state, the act mandates us to align our services with the states and persuade the states to domesticate the act. And of course, like you rightly said, 70% of our older people are in the rural area and they're very hard to reach places. So how do we get there? So of course you know that in each of these states, you also have issues that are on the concurrent list.
Right.
So first and foremost is to first sell the National Senior Citizen Center and what it offers to the older people themselves, and then use them as an engagement mechanism to get to their state governor. Because we are short-staffed, as it were. and we do not have the physical structures in all the states. So it will be very difficult for us. So what did we do? We set out to establish the stakeholders consultative forum in each state. So while we were developing the strategic roadmap and developing the plan of action on aging, we had invited, stakeholders in those categories that I named: Association of Older People, National Union of Pensioners, professionals in aging, geriatric, gerontology, social work, nutrition, across the board. And we had invited private sector, representatives of traditional institutions, community-based organizations, civil society organizations, 9 solid categories, and of course, state actors, most of them across these MDAs. So having developed that, we saw that we now had these formidable resources, human resources, that were part of this. So they bought the vision, they have owned the vision, and they came from the different states. So what we did was to mobilize and to partner with them to now facilitate the mobilization of the same categories of stakeholders in each state, which they did, mobilized, and then we gave our thematic areas. In any state we're interested in health and social care, so we need somebody among these formidable stakeholders who has the competency to be the vice chair. And then anybody who is interested can line up behind. And then another area is we're interested in learning opportunities and continuing engagement. So somebody vice chair to be in charge. And then we're interested in research data documentation. Somebody who has that competency is vice chair, and bring everybody who's interested there. And then we're interested in agriculture and food security. Most of older persons, 65% are farmers, subsistence farmers. So we are also interested in age-friendly environment. That would be housing, transportation, and water and sanitation. So we now have 6 vice chairs and then 2 very influential co-chairs. So in each state we have 8, and then that now times 86 and FCT formed our stakeholder mechanism. So we can enter anywhere, any state.
All right, but for now your physical presence is registered in through these stakeholders.
They are the ones now campaigning.
Okay.
For the domestication of the
But you do look forward to establishing in all the states across.
Definitely.
Right.
Of course, that's the matter of budget.
Right. So that's the thing.
Since geopolitical zones, at least.
Yes, at least, and that will go back to the issue. But, well, we're fast running out of time, and it would seem as if we have barely scratched the surface of what you have to do. But there's one thing I must refer to. There's the National Day of Older Persons, which is set for the 5th of October.
That's a good one. Yes, that's a good one.
So
I would really pause here to really thank the President, President Muhammadu Buhari. He has been, truly sincere about inclusion of older people. You can talk about inclusion and then you don't put the infrastructure, the architecture in place for inclusion. So this present administration has done that. So now the International Day of Older Persons, which is celebrated worldwide, clashes with the Independence Day.
All right.
So that obliterated it. So now he, with appeal, he now made that declaration, October 5th.
So now it's moved
celebrated
to
across the nation.
All right. Well, we've just about run out of time. I was wondering if there was, you could quickly, maybe just a minute, comment on this, which I believe will be one of the most difficult tasks for you, the attitudinal change you talk about. Yes. So people begin to see older persons as not those who have expired and who have no reason to be around this this planet or this world of ours.
I think apart from the campaigns, which we're campaigning, we continue to increase the momentum of that campaign with information materials, information, education and communications material. But more than that, we want to empower older people and make them visible. So when you go back to your community and see that older man that you had ignored and called a witch, now empowered, and you see the enterprise, the livelihood opportunity that had dwindled and was nothing, you see him empowered, and you see him fresh, you see him with a health insurance. Of course, you have nothing to do than to say, this man is very useful, you need him. So empowerment and visibility Plus, our campaigns will bring back that value. So I want to use this opportunity to just appeal. This is your future. I mean, so let's build the future that we want to live in. If you show respect, strengthen family values, and then, recognize that that older person has a right just like you. And that is you tomorrow. And then do all that you can do to make the environment age-friendly. Yeah.
Dr. Emem Omokaro, Director General, National Senior Citizen Center, this conversation is not over.
It cannot be.
We look forward to asking you to come again so we can explore other aspects of changing the narrative of senior citizens and older persons in Nigeria. We'd like to thank you for coming on this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate it. Thank
right.
you. Yeah.
And that's our program today. We thank you for watching. Next week we'll be back with One-on-One. I am Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.